I always believe you whenever I see you on screen. And I also feel like he's smarter than whatever we've given him to do. Like the kid in school's like, I'm 2 grades ahead of what you have me doing, but I'm here anyway, right? And like when you're doing War Machine, I'm like, I see it, like I believe you. And at the same time, I'm like, he's thinking about this on a much more complex level than all the rest of us are, right? So let's talk about.
He's thinking about like, what? How did I get here? Like, this suit is so hot. Like, why can't they CGI this shit? Why do I have to wear this? It looks like I'm thinking of something, some high-minded. No. I'm literally just going like, did they say lunch was at 4 or was it 4:30? That's the trick to acting, really. You just have to be thinking something. You don't have to be thinking the thing that your character's supposed to be. Just be thinking something.
But you are thinking in the mode of the character when you're doing the character, right?
I try to, yes. Of course.
The Toure Show. Okay, though. The Toure Show. Okay, though.
That might be the best question I've ever been asked.
You're a phenomenal person. I mean, you legendary.
I am a fan of you, my brother.
Don Cheadle is one of the most extraordinary actors in the game. I love him every time I see him on screen. He's just one of these brilliant people who seems to be putting a lot of thought into everything he does. So I was so excited to have a chance to talk to him about acting. Right now, he's executive producing and directing The Big Cigar, which is a big, awesome piece I can't wait for about Huey P. Newton going to Cuba. He's also working on a piece called Unstoppable. He's War Machine in the MCU. He's everything. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about acting. We're going to talk about climate change. We're going to talk about what it is to be Black and in Hollywood. It's my man Don Cheadle on Touré Show. Don, thank you so much for doing the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Tell the folks, you're executive producing and directing The Big Cigar, which tells us about Huey P. Newton, who's one of my favorite Black history superstars. Tell the people about Huey P. Newton.
Well, this show, I did EP the first 2 episodes, directed the first 2 episodes. There are 6 in the series. And this particular show is based on an article that appeared in Playboy, written by Josh Bierman, that tells around the time when Huey was being accused of a murder and had kind of a bullseye on his back and fled to Cuba. He and Bert Schneider, who was sort of a counterculture producer at that time in Hollywood, together they devised a plan to get him out of the United States and get him to Cuba under the auspices of doing a fake movie. It's kind of like a reverse Argo, where the movie was sort of the Trojan horse to get him out of the country, as opposed to them trying to get back in the country. So it's based on that article, based on that story. It was developed by Janine Sherman-Barrois, who's also the showrunner, and Jim Hecht, who also produced and wrote Winning Time.
But who is Huey P. Newton? Because some of the folks know, you probably know more than the average person at this point.
I mean, he's one of the founders of the Black Panther Party. So on this day, as this started, when we were talking about historical events, he was dead center in a very transformative time in this country. And one of the real reasons that we even understand and talk about what revolution means in terms of what we're dealing with in this country right now, with justice and equality and the things that he was fighting for. It's so prevalent and real and present right now.
I mean, he was brilliant. He had trained as a lawyer, so he knew how to argue. He knew how to manipulate the law for the Panthers' benefit. So he's flipping the laws against the police. We are allowed to stand this far away and monitor what you're doing, pigs. He had so much charisma, extremely attractive man. So men and women were attracted to his message and the brilliance. And then he's doing these amazing things in the street. And the Panthers are not just guns and revolution. They're also kitchen table, taking care of the community, feeding breakfast to children, and taking care of families in need. So it's this complete organization that's trying to serve all these different ways the Black community could, like legally, revolution-wise, food. I mean, it's an extraordinary situation that he sets up.
Yeah. Which ultimately was the thing that was the most dangerous to them, not the guns, not the revolutionary part, not the standing there policing the police, cop watching, but the fact that they were really influencing the community and they were really changing the idea about what Black people were and who they were in this country, and this community was coming together. And they were educating, as you said, they were feeding the community, and that became the dangerous part, changing the hearts and minds. They could deal with the guns. They passed laws to deal with that. The Balfour Act was created to get the guns out of the hands of the Panthers, signed into law by, then Governor Reagan. So they could deal with that in a different way, but actually trying to prevent them from becoming influential in the community and changing, as I said, the hearts and minds and swaying people to their way of seeing how the world should work. That was ultimately the most dangerous thing, the breakfast programs, not the guns.
I am so excited to see this piece because I want to see what you guys do with it. And I know Andre Holland, who's playing Huey P. Newton, he's a fantastic actor. But there is pressure on you, at least from folks our age who saw Huey. I saw, if memory serves, a one-man play that Roger Governor Smith did, where he is Huey for 2 hours, and he's extraordinary. I mean, he's an amazing actor. He's extraordinary. So we have seen Huey and the Panthers portrayed before, right? Those of us who have been around, right, and are Black and are caring about this sort of culture. So there's pressure on you guys to, get this right and tell the story when we have seen this story told.
Yeah, I mean, and really this particular story with this particular situation between these two men and the other characters that are involved in it, in getting Huey to Cuba is one narrow aspect of the story. And I think it's always the challenge when you tell a story like this. And it's something that we were trying to be kind of meta about with this piece. To the degree we were successful or not is going to be up to the people who see it, as you said. But one of the things that we were trying to really smuggle in was this idea of even doing the story in this way. There are characters throughout the story that, including Huey's father, who are like, does this include you telling this message through Hollywood? And the Panthers themselves saying, you got to be careful of that. We're going to get our message co-opted. So it's a part of the narrative that, we keep ringing that bell. And, we're trying to be in some way subversive and kind of meta about it, because that is the challenge. How do you tell these stories? Who gets to tell the stories? What is the bar? And how do you, especially in this very noisy time as far as streamers go and entertainment and all the different places that people go to see stories, how do you keep people there so that you can get these things across? So again, I haven't even actually seen the whole thing put together. I dove immediately back into work, but that was the goal, and it'll be up to the people.
I wonder, there's one aspect of Huey that I wonder if it is included or alluded to in this piece. I had Elaine Brown on this show, which was quite an honor. She was the chairman, as you know, of the Panthers when Huey was going to Cuba, was in Cuba. That's right. She said years later that somebody went to one of her events when she put out her memoir and said, you only became the chairman of the Panthers because you slept with Huey. And she said, Huey slept with half of California. So either I'm the best woman in California or it didn't matter. And but
Yeah.
she's talking about the love that a lot of sisters in particular had for him because of the looks, because of the revolutionary spirit, the whole package. So are you also talking about how he was a beloved and wanted person? A rock star?
Yes, I mean, yes, he has the central relationship in this movie is with he and his fiance, who becomes his wife, Gwen, at that time, and she's an amalgamation of other people. But there is a real Gwen who has since taken herself out of this. She doesn't want to. She's lives a very simple life, and has sort of changed her whole thing around this. But Frederica, Huey's one of Huey's widow, actually has seen it, and we were able to show it to her and get her way in, and she was very moved by it, which was important to us, and we're still continuing to do things with the foundation now, and trying to make sure that there's a life beyond the series that involves the Panthers, involves the promotion and continuation of the message.
And you're also working on something called Unstoppable, about a very successful college wrestler, a champion wrestler who was born with one leg.
Yeah.
Tell me about that story, because that is, I mean, I feel like I'm crying just even hearing about the story.
Yeah, Anthony Robles, who highly decorated ASU wrestler through high school and went on, was an undefeated champion, who was actually a part of this project and was on set every day. So getting to meet him, and this is kind of the story of his life, at least through college. And yeah, just an amazing human being, someone that is inspirational, that, like you say, you're just crying thinking about the story. It's unbelievable. And to meet him and to see, he's the most humble person you'll ever meet. He's very quiet, very reserved until he hits the mat, and then he's a monster. And seeing some of these, you can look online and watch these meets. And his one leg was something at the beginning that people had a lot of sympathy for and felt bad for him. Until he started kicking everybody's ass, and then they were like, "Wait a minute, that's an advantage." And they started trying to change the rules for him,
Right.
And did change the rules for him, which was incredible, And I play his college coach. Jennifer Lopez plays his mother, and Michael Pena plays his high school coach. Bobby Cannavale is also in it, plays his stepfather. So I think, I'm looking forward to that movie. I think they've shown it to audiences already. I haven't seen it, but it's tested well, and it really is an inspirational story.
You're at an amazing stage of your career. You've done a lot of incredible roles. Everybody knows your name. Legendary career. I imagine you are very picky with what you do, because you can be very choosy. So what does a project have to make you interested to want to go do it?
Well, that's a good question. It's a lot of things, It's not just one thing. I want to also go back and say, though, the lead in the movie who plays Anthony Robles is Jarrell Jerome, who you may remember from When They See Us, won the Emmy for that.
Mm-hmm.
Great actor, young kid. He's going to have a long career, and he's really great. But to come back to what it is that makes me want to say, yeah, I want to do it. I guess first it needs to be something that I haven't seen before, something that's, interesting and new, that I can at least tell myself a story about why it matters to do it. We spend time that you'll never get back on these movies and shows, and you work 14, 15 hours a day. I'm not poor mean. We get paid very well for it, and it's, not ditch digging, but it's, it takes a toll, and it takes your time, and it's something that you can't buy back no matter how much money they give you. So you want to be able to look back and go, I understand why I did that, and I know the reason why I was involved. And you make these little families, and everybody goes to all corners of the earth. So anymore, to your point, I've been doing this a long time, and you can Kevin Hart damn at any point. But it's it's the people, it's the people that you're doing it with. It's the project. It's the opportunity to maybe do something with a character that's going to challenge you and push you in some direction that you haven't been pushed in before. And also, hopefully, ultimately, if you're able to do it, create something that's going to exist out there in the world that can actually push a message or
Yeah.
move people in some way, or it doesn't all have to be medicine, and rarely is it medicine, but it's great if it can have, if there's something that can live beyond the moment of just being entertained and eating your popcorn on the couch for a minute.
Yeah, when I think about the things you've done, from Crash to Hotel Rwanda to the Miles Davis film, I'm like, he's saying, I want to do something meaningful with this work. I want to tell a valuable story. Even in Boogie Nights, your character, I mean, it's an extraordinary film, but your character is an extraordinary part of it. And not just somebody who's just in this world, but so I feel like you're always like, how can I use this platform to do something more than just entertain?
Yeah. I mean, and you named some of them where, none bigger than Hotel Rwanda, that took on a life of its own, and was the reason I went on a congressional delegation to the area, to Darfur, and became very involved with that movement. And it's the reason why I have a relationship I do with Paul Rusesabagina, who just got out of jail last year, who was in Rwanda for 900 days. It's just so sometimes that happens where the project you do becomes something more than you could have ever imagined it was. And you really have an opportunity to be impactful. And when that happens, it's a blessing. And people ask me, do you think that people who have the spotlight, who have the microphone, who have the platform, you as well, do they have a responsibility to do more and to try to push the things into the world that we want to see and that need to be seen, and show light on those who cannot get in the light without, the sort of assistance and leg up. And I feel, for me, yes, I don't think that it's necessarily a blanket statement for everybody out there. You get in where you fit in, and people have their own ways and things that are important to them. But I feel like it would kind of be a waste if you didn't use this for something other than just, free tickets and line cutter privileges at events.
I always believe you whenever I see you on screen. And I also feel like he's smarter than whatever we've given him to do. Like the kid in school's like, I'm 2 grades ahead of what you have me doing, but I'm here anyway, right? And like when you're doing War Machine, I'm like, I see it, like I believe you. And at the same time, I'm like, he's thinking about this on a much more complex level than all the rest of us are, right? So let's talk about War Machine, the whole MCU character.
He's thinking about like, how did I get here? Like, this suit is so hot. Like, why can't they CGI this shit? Why do I have to wear this? It looks like I'm thinking of something, some high-minded. No. I'm literally just going like, did they say lunch was at 4 or was it 4:30? That's the trick to acting, really. You just have to be thinking something. You don't have to be thinking the thing that your character's supposed to be. Just be thinking something.
But you are thinking in the mode of the character when you're doing the character, right?
I try to, yes. Of course. Yes.
Well, can you tell me something about making War Machine and making that character be, up to the Don Cheadle standard?
I mean, I don't know. It's very, we understand where we are. We know what it is that we're attempting to do and what the world is that you're trying to flesh out. And then it's doing what you said, trying to really find the truth. It's always what, I think we're trying to do as actors, really try to find the truth in whatever moment is. If it's a farce, it's even more truthful in a farce. It's characters, giving way more energy than is necessary to an event, but it's still grounded in like the truest part of you that you can touch, because the camera can see it all. The camera can see when you're lying. The camera can see when you're not really, coming from someplace that's grounded. So I feel very lucky that I had really good teachers coming up, and that I learned very early about, things like Stanislavski and Uta Hagen and all these great teachers and Meisner. And then I went to college and studied it in school in really kind of a conservatory setting, and learned about script analysis and, wrote plays and did all of that stuff as I was coming up. Did much more theater than at the beginning than I ever did any sort of TV or movies. So I feel very lucky that I kind of got to learn this thing with my hands in the clay a lot. And that's, going back to your earlier question, something I always want to see if I can do in a part. I'm like, can I dig into this thing? Can I really find a way to bridge? Where's the bridge between Don and this character? Like, where's that place that we connect so I can be truthful and be real and allow the audience to then, they graft onto that, what they graft onto it. If you're real and you're truthful, then people bring their own thing to that. You know what I mean? And I think that's the goal of all good actors, I think, to really service the work. If it's good, if it's written well, if the Bible's right, you know what I mean? You service the work, you service the story, you know where you're supposed to be, and then you hope to invite the audience to participate in that. They're the other part of the equation that has to be there to make it be what it needs to be.
So wait, so what are the keys to making me believe you, to making me believe, oh, he really is a burger store clerk or whatever, whatever you're playing. What is the key to, because as soon as you step on stage, I'm like, I believe him. Whatever he said he's doing, I believe that. So what are you doing?
Maybe it's like it honestly is the same thing that you don't have to tell a kid to believe, right? A little kid, when they're playing a game, you watch little kids play games, they're all in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're not.
Yeah, they're fully bought into whatever that story they're telling is. They're there. And I think it really is remembering that playfulness and remembering that, there's hard work and it's arduous and all this other stuff. But really, at the end of the day, you're playing make-believe. We have the best toys and the best, bells and whistles with which to do it. But you're still trying to connect to that imagination that you had when you were 8 years old and, you were an alien or you were a monster or you were a dragon or you were whatever you were. Somebody had to go like, hey, it's time to go inside now. You're like, oh, right. I was in. And I think it's, yeah. So for me, it's trying to always rekindle that, always find the thing. And there's a lot of different ways in at this point. Like I said, I've been doing it a long time. I have a lot of ways to try to get in there, from music to a piece of art to elliptical ways that seem like they don't have any necessarily, there's no relationship between the character and this thing, but just whatever you can use that gets you feeling like, oh, it's bubbling and I can play. And then above all, the people that you're with, because you can't do this. You can do the one, like you said, you can do a one-man show and it's just about your relationship with the audience and your relationship with the character. But the most fun to me is when I get to play with other actors, and then, I don't know what's going to happen. That's the best. You do your work, you show up, you forget plans. Those are out the window. It's like, now I'm a real person and you're a real person. And now we get to play, and you're doing stuff that surprises me and I'm hopefully doing stuff that surprises you, and it's better.
Do you find that the better actors, the more lauded actors, are going to be more complex in the surprise element, in the choices they're making, than other, like if I played basketball with a greater player, it's going to be a higher level of game. Does it correlate like that?
I think so. And I think the higher level of game when it comes to this is people being really engaged and listening and responding and being alive to the moment and spontaneous. that's when I think you see the best performances. That's when you're watching something, because people are doing things that, when something's happening, you can feel when something's alive in the moment, And I think a lot of times when the director has created the sandbox, in the right way, and you get people in who are really have done their homework and have worked on their character and kind of really know who they are and where they're coming from and what their motivations are and what they want and what the stakes are and what will happen if they don't get it. They come in with all of this stuff. Then you give them the scene and things just start percolating and things happen. And I think, yes, the best actors and the ones that are most lauded and the ones that you're most wow when you see them, it's because you can't put your finger on it, but they're very alive in the moment. And that's something that when you have two people that have committed to going, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see, let's go. You're getting to watch people like painting a painting together in real time that they don't know what the painting's going to be at the end. And that's really exciting.
I saw a video of you today on TikTok leading some younger actors in a class type situation, and you were saying that what you're trying to do is to make your scene partner think or feel or do. Right? They got to think something, got to feel something, got to do something. I think you were saying each line has to elicit one of those three things in your scene partner. So then you're going back. Can you elaborate a little bit on like what you're trying to do to your scene partner with those ideas?
Well, this is something that great acting teacher Larry Moss talks about, and I was really, I wish in that clip it said his name, because that's who I got that from. And I've done work with Larry Moss, and my wife has, and she's the one who actually turned me on to him. And he's very much about script analysis and very much about literature and reading great plays and really digging into the words and what they mean. But you think about in life, when you're having a conversation with someone, you're only trying to do one of those three things, or you're acting. You're lying. If you're not really going after one of those things, then you're just you're lying. You're performing, and maybe the character is performing so that they will get them to do something, so that they will feel something, so then they will understand something. But ultimately, that's all the communication. That's all it really is we're trying to get people to feel, to do something because they feel something, to feel something after they do something, to understand something so they'll feel something. Those are the only things. Because a lot of times actors, it's like it can become very outside in. And to people who haven't come up with it and don't really study it, it's like when you look at a golf swing. Most people look at a golf swing and they're like, okay, you're just swinging your arms. It's like the golf swing is mostly about your legs. The golf swing is mostly about your base. And it doesn't look like that when you watch a golf swing.
Right.
It just looks like this.
Oh, right.
So it's a similar thing where the acting just looks like, oh, well, he sat like this and said that line and it looked really cool. And she put her hand to her head and it was like, wow, that was a really cool moment. It's like, that's not usually what great actors are doing. Now, good actors can fool you and just be, put stuff on, and you're very skilled at it. You can just be a craftsman and make it about a painting that's really cool. But most of those things have come out of discovery. A gesture's come out of a discovery, something that's inside that person, that's about a want, that's about a goal that they have, something that they're trying to achieve. And that's where that comes from. When you look at it from the outside and you're not really, understanding how it's put together, it can look like it's just something that's all outside in. But that great stuff, that stuff that makes you go, whoa, when Gary Oldman does something that you're like, I would have never thought to do that. It's something's working from the inside out, and it presents itself as like a gesture or something outward. But it's coming from something inside. It's connected to something inside.
But you're also talking about listening to your scene partner. He or she will say the same lines pretty much, right? But they might say them a little bit different, a little tone, a little rhythm, and you're listening to that and you respond to that and they respond to that, and now you're playing tennis. And
we're playing.
Right?
Correct. Yeah, and in that way, it's very much like jazz. In that way, it's very musical and rhythmic and about energy. And a lot of times, I'll get on set and I'm like, can we cut this line and cut that line and cut that line? We don't need the lines a lot of times because once it's going and that connection is happening, just like in life, when the people you're close to, the people you understand, the people that you're in a relationship with, you don't have to say anything a lot of times. Looking at them, especially us, right?
Your wife can look at you and you're like, I know what that means. I'm so sorry, honey.
I was talking to George Wolfe. This is totally tantential, but George Wolfe, great director,
great public theater,
directed. But theater director, but also directed Ma Rainey. Black Bottom. That was just a very lauded. And he was talking about, I don't know if I should tell this story.
Oh, then you should definitely tell the story.
He was talking about a movie that was a slave movie. I will leave it, which one it was, off the table.
Okay.
Because that's not the point of the story. But he said that he knew that he was like, this movie is bullshit because at no point did they cut to a slave when one of the other slaves was speechifying and the slave was like, he goes, if we don't see that shot, that's not real. Because there's definitely one of them like, Negro, please. So you don't always need words. And you a lot of times can do much more without words,
No, for sure. When you give, my God, in Boogie Nights, when after the robbery, and you're in the donut store and you're just standing there. You didn't say anything, but the moment is so powerful, right? Suddenly, there's the money. He's freaked out, and then he looks, and then he changes, and then he runs. And I'm like, it was so, if you'd said anything, it wouldn't have been as perfect as like he's having all these emotions without saying anything.
Right. I remember when my mom saw that, she said she was watching that moment as, they're pushing in on, and they're pushing in and he's looking and they're pushing in. My mom was saying, oh, don't take it. Don't take the money. She's like, don't take it, please. Don't take that money, baby. And it's funny because there was another moment in Boogie Nights where Buck is sitting at the table at the party in that Earth, Wind, and Fire get up. He's got the wig on and the huge like sequin shoulders and everything. And so I'm at the table and Paul comes up to me, Paul Thomas Anderson, who directed, and he said, hey, in this moment, I want Buck. I just want nothing coming from Buck. I want nothing. And I said, okay. So he went back and we shot it and he came over, he said, cut. And he comes over, he goes, you were kind of doing nothing. I don't want you to do nothing. I want nothing. It's like, I just want nothing. And just think about it. And he walked off and I was like, this is like a koan, like a Japanese riddle.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know what you're saying, what that means.
Mm-hmm.
How do I just be nothing? And so I'm sitting there trying to figure out what it means. And he comes over and goes, okay, yeah, we got it. And he just rolled on me sitting there
thinking about it,
to figure out. So sometimes those performances come from a really smart director's manipulation, a really smart director knowing what to use, what not to use, what to shoot, what not to shoot too.
Everybody who comes to the show, I ask them, what does being Black mean to you and where does it show up in the work? And I think the choices you've made within what to do and how to do it has been like super Black. And, I feel like we're always going to get some Black flavor from Don Cheadle. But like, I want to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, good question. I mean, sometimes these questions, a question like that, I'm like, what do you see? I want to know your take on it. Because I know for me, that's something that's always trucked in because it always matters.
Yeah.
It's not always the most important thing in every situation, but it never has no bearing on the situation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times, and I have played parts that have not been written for a Black actor. Marty Khan was not written for a Black actor.
Yeah.
But that became, in House of Lies, but that became a very big aspect of who that character was and what it, the things that he was pushing back against. And it became a part of the storylines when he goes into rooms where there's nobody that looks like him and they don't want to talk to him. They want to talk to the white guy next to him, or they want to talk to the white woman next to him. And he's just, in the sidecar. So all of that stuff. And when you're with good creatives and people who are smart, they don't want to be colorblind. They don't want to cut around that. They're like, no, let's be colorful.
Yeah.
Let's actually take advantage of everything that everyone has who's going to bring who they are to this and use it and try and figure out ways that it can inform things, sometimes dead down the center and sometimes elliptically and off to the side, but it's always in there.
You know how a great rapper or a great singer is a little behind the beat, and that's very cool, that when they're behind the beat, just a little off, but on purpose, and that's where you get the soul from when they're, and that's how I see you. And I don't mean just in the way that you talk, but just the way that you choose to be on screen. I'm like, he's a little behind the beat in a way that is so fucking cool.
Oh, thank you. I was just thought of Chris Daddy Day's drums when you said that. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I haven't ever thought of it in that way, or planned it in that way.
But you're also good for a big pause. That a big pregnant pause, he'll hold the moment and then he'll say something and wow, that was much more funny or much more dramatic because he took that big pregnant pause and he's thinking and he's
edit. Nope, don't say that. Nope, you're gonna get canceled if you say that. Nope, you don't need that attention. I mean, I think that it is something that, I've seen I think my favorite actors, it's just being alive, right? You don't want to go, again, it's the listening, it's being engaged. Some of the best acting we've ever seen is not from the person speaking. It's not from the person who's got the mic at that moment. It's the person who's listening and being changed by what it is that they're hearing and being informed by what it is that they're hearing. And we thought, that was going to make them go left, but she said that. And now that line that seemed like it was going to be this, that's not that line anymore. It's the same words, but the intentions behind it and the meaning of it is completely different now. But again, you don't get that that comes from playing, that comes from the back and forth, the interplay with your other actors.
Is there an actor or a couple of actors who you're like, okay, that person really embodies and exemplifies greatness, and working with them was okay, that was really special?
I mean, working with Denzel was amazing. And having the opportunity to play with somebody who's got all the gears, that's the other, you're working on the high wire with someone who's like, come on, let's raise the high wire even higher. Let's see what happens. And that was, it was early-ish in my career. And just a great opportunity. And Carl Franklin, who directed that, who I had done his AFI thesis movie. So there was a comfort with him, and a real, and a lot of permission to explore. And so that was great. And I've since working with Sophie Okonedo in Hotel Rwanda, who's another great actor, comes from theater. Same kind of thing. Just coming to the set every day and not knowing what's going to happen and just figuring it out with each other, and Terry George, the director, and him creating, like I said, the playground for us to be able to do that.
Well, Devil in a Blue Dress.
And I've been very lucky to work with a lot of them.
Yeah, Devil in a Blue Dress was, a seminal moment for you where things changed from, that you became a superstar out of that experience. What did you learn from Denzel in that moment in your career?
I think, he would pull my coat on things about, performance things sometimes, like story things, a lot of times, and a lot of times it wasn't anything that he said. It was just me watching him, and
Okay.
just and as my character, it was great because that's all he did was just he was just enamored of Easy, and he was this dude. It's like whatever you want, Easy, I'm down. Like what are we doing? So it was great to be able to pull Don into that and really play that with him. And then when we did Flight later, a similar thing. There was so much trust there that we just got to really be, we got to go at each other. We got to really just kind of under the safety of the character, within the safety of the characters, just be really like fucked up to each other and really be, and go there because the trust was there. So that's something that I think that over time I've learned, like how to be a good number one on the call sheet, how to show up, be ready, be on time, be professional. Everybody's there to have, they have a job to do. Everybody wants to get home to their families. Don't be that dude that hangs out in the trailer for 4 hours and doesn't care about anybody else's day. These are families. These are really, we're thrown together in this like crucible where we have a big job to try to accomplish and never enough time to do it. And, we're also trying to like be as sensitive and as open and vulnerable in many cases as we can. So the environment needs to be protected. So I think over the course of the career, that's one of the biggest things that I've really trying to take on is how to be a good leader when you're being the leader, or how to just be a good example and live the way that you want it to go.
Can you talk a little bit about the work you do before you get to the set? You talked about script analysis and preparation. I'm sure that there's a lot of things that you in particular do. Get the script, figure out and become that person. Like, what do you do?
Like I said, a lot of different things. I mean, if it's someone that's based on someone who's you're playing an historical character, there's great source material to look at, and you try to pull all of the things in that, because it's not always like every part of it that you're going to use in the story that you're doing. That may be a very narrow slice of what that is, but having an understanding of who that person is as much as you can, soup to nuts, only helps. And again, reading the script a lot, really understanding how you fit in. What is the point of what is your character? How is your character contributing to the arc of this scene, the arc of this story, the arc of the entire thing? Where do you start? Where do you end? All of those kinds of things, all of those really sort of, drilled down, researchy kinds of things. And then, like I said, then you show up to the set and that's all in the rearview mirror. And now you're with human beings and different people and a director who's going to want something that they want. And they thought that this was the moment that you thought the moment was over here. They're like, no, this is the moment I want. So it's like, okay, I've got to like figure out how to get to there because, it's very rarely is any of this the actor's medium. Do you know what I mean? It's like movies are kind of the director's medium. TV is kind of the showrunner's medium, kind of the writer's medium, and definitely theater. That's the closest to being the actor's medium because it's you on stage. There's no cutaways. There's no second takes. It's you and that audience. But that's still, in many ways, a literary medium. It's really about the writer. So you're always in service of someone's vision, and it's finding the freedom within those constraints is what it is that the job is. And that freedom comes from knowing who you are, knowing what, and many times it's not written in stone. You're working with the writer, they're there, the director's there, you have the other actors there. If you have time, you're workshopping scenes and, you're trying to, you're changing things because they don't necessarily fit the environment that you're in. Oh, we thought we were going to be at a gas station. We're actually in a restaurant. So we have to like kind of change that you have to be nimble and malleable. But you cannot be those things successfully if you don't know who you are. If going from the gas station to the library is like, whoa, that completely throws you off. It's like, no, my character can live in either one of those places. They're going to be different in those places, but I still know who I am. So I think the work is really knowing who you are and knowing what you're there to do, knowing what the job is. How do I serve this story?
One last thing. The last time I saw you, I'm sorry, I did not know the depth of your commitment.
Who I was. Yeah, you didn't know who I was. I remember.
No, of course I know you were.
You thought I was Wesley. You thought it was Wesley Snipes.
No, but I didn't know the depth of your commitment to climate change, and I've read about that, and it's been a very serious part of your life for a very long time. And I just want to hear you talk about where you think we as a society need to go to deal with the problem that we have.
Well, it's a big one. It's in some ways the biggest one, that under the umbrella of all of these other things is the umbrella under which all these other things sit is the world we live in. Because none of the problems that we have are going to matter if it's 4,000 degrees outside and nothing is growing and we have collapse in species, mostly ours. And we're already seeing climate catastrophes and climate casualties, and they've been happening in places that don't really get in the newspaper and don't really get a lot of print for years now. And they're always a part of conflicts around the world, and they exacerbate all the conflicts in the world. How many wars have we had over water? Mm-hmm. Many, that seem to be they're about other things as well, but largely a lot of them are about resources and access to clean water, access to firewood, access to shelter. All those things are being stressed and challenged by what's happening right now. And we're seeing how the weather patterns and everything's being supercharged now. This is a huge year. We're looking at it, just came through a huge weather situation that was driven and fueled in many ways by our changing climate and climate weirding, not just, climate warming, but it's weirding because water is places that it's not supposed to be. And, so we're kind of trying to play whack-a-mole right now. And obviously it's important for us to support politicians who are trying to drive policies and lawmakers who are trying to create laws that will help address this. And for us, for people of color, for Black people who are going to be the most affected by this and are the most affected by this when we have the communities that we live in that are the most exposed to these changes, we have to talk more about it. We have to show up more. We have to say that it's important. We have to demand more, and not just from who's the president, but we have to get involved at the local level and get very vocal. And I work with a group called the Solutions Project that I was pulled into by Mark Ruffalo. And it is now they've shifted the leadership to a woman named Gloria Walton, who is a Black woman in this field, and it's Black women led, and it's centered around those who are the most vulnerable in these positions, and also is taking its cues from those people, because a lot of times we're not at those tables when these questions are being asked about what are the solutions. They're shooting past us. And a lot of times the people who are at the most risk and or who have been on the sharp end of the stick of these things have the best solutions, have the best answers, because they're living with it and dealing with it in real time every day. So it's about being seen too. It's another issue where, the intersectionality is this justice that we also have to think about. Climate justice is a huge part of it. So there's no one way to attack it. I think we have to try to attack it from every way, at the ballot, in your schools, in your churches, and in your homes, so that we can keep the issue front and center. Because again, many people are going to be able to insulate themselves from this in a large degree much better than we are. And it's going to affect us more deleteriously than everybody else. So we got to get on it.
Don, thank you so much for the time. Best of luck with the big cigar and Unstoppable and everything else. I really appreciate the chance to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's do it again. Thanks, man. Good talking to you.
I love to. All right. Peace, man. Thank you. Hey, if you like what you saw today, be sure to check out more Touré Show content right here. Don't forget to click that subscribe button for more Touré Show content every week.